welcome to Oak Road Hatter. I'm Finley Cannon and I'm joined by Adam Driscoll. And this week we're dissecting the first league defeat of the season for Luton Town as we come off the back of a 2-1 defeat away at Bradford City. And we're also looking ahead to the midweek visit of Wigan Athletic. But before that, don't forget to check us out on socials. That's at Oak Road Hatter on all of your social media platforms to keep in touch and up to date with the latest content that we produce. But let's get straight into it, Adam. And yeah, it's a first defeat of the season in the league for Luton, obviously away from home at Bradford City, who we did flag before the game that could be a challenging side to play against because they were confident, they were a very vocal home crowd, and they got on top of us throughout the game, and we did not show nearly enough of what we needed to get a result from that game, and we were made to pay.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, it was just a really disappointing afternoon. I think we lacked intensity. I just thought we were generally really passive across the pitch for the most part, in all honesty. And I think Bloomfield, I think in his interview said we were one paced, and he's right. And that pace was just slow and lethargic, and really not what we need to be if we're gonna achieve the success this season that everybody wants. So hugely disappointing. I think it's right to congratulate Bradford as well, because I think we spoke last week, and we rightly thought they'd be up for it with 20,000 in the ground, and you know off the back of promotion and having started the season well, and they were up for it. But at no point at all really did we match that intensity, and it really only looked like it was going to go one way from fairly early on. So yeah, majorly disappointing, but we are going to have setbacks, and we need to kind of dust ourselves off and go again on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and it was two very much avoidable goals, and we'll get onto the goals in a bit more detail shortly, but two goals that we could easily have avoided, and you'd think the Luton that we saw probably against Peterborough would have avoided those positions, albeit Bradford look a much, much better side than Peterborough did. But it is concerning the first time we've been tested in the league, we've sort of failed that initial test.
Yeah, and I might have put the jinx on it last week, because I was sort of saying I don't we don't look like conceding, and if we get to 10 games and we conceded half a dozen, whatever, then the confidence is there, and all of the things that we've been doing really well structurally and defensively, we didn't do well at the weekend. And it goes to show that whatever league you're in, if you don't do that right and you don't match the opposition for intensity and desire, then you're going to come unstuck. And we should know better than anyone, because we're a team that has risen through the leagues by not having big names and spending loads of money, but having work rate, effort, and desire, and outplaying teams and outfighting teams. And yeah, we just didn't do it at all at the weekend, and as we've said, we're rightly punished, really.
And we didn't help ourselves early on with the likes of Millie Ali getting himself booked very early, and then arguably could have had a second yellow pretty early as well. And then we saw him hooked on the 24th minute, and Kadua came on, which was he was probably our best player in fairness to him when he came on. But he came on much earlier than we expected because Ali made a couple of rash challenges that made it quite clear he's actually not a defensive wing back.
Yeah, I mean, and let's jump and look at the lineup and the setup. Firstly, I think I don't have a problem at all with the three at the back and the two wing backs, but you need to have two wing backs that can play in those positions, and that is their natural role. And when we're sort of, if you roll the calendar back a month, and we're on the build up to the season, and we've got Doughty at left wing back, a fit Izzy Jones at right wing back, you're thinking, wow, like this is going to be brilliant, and the formation is absolutely suited. Jump ahead to where we are now, and we haven't got Doughty. We've got Cohen Bramall, who is still building up a lot of fitness, and we've got on the right hand side, obviously Walters, who's injured right now. and Izzy Jones who's injured, and bar that, you're talking about players that are really filling holes there. So there's a big question to be asked around: is this the right formation for us right now? And I know a few people have voiced their opinions on socials, after the defeat on Saturday, but there's a big question mark around that, and the fact that we could very comfortably revert to a back four right now with the personnel that we've got. So yeah, that's obviously a little bit on formation and kind of maybe square pegs at the moment. Um, you mentioned Millie Ali. I don't think we get the same from him at left wing back, or right wing back, or wherever he is. I feel like he's almost the opposite of Ogbene. Ogbene was brilliant with acres in front of him. He could knock the ball 20 yards in front of him, beat anybody to it, and have that space to run into. I don't think Millie Ali is the same. I think Millie Ali needs to be on the ball, facing up to a defender. Midway into the opposition's half and really taking a player on from there. So I do think he's wasted at wing back, and we either need to address that in the remainder of the window, or we need to think about formation. But yeah, so not great, not great. Ali gets booked very early. I mean, what minute was that? He got booked 17th minute, I think. So already you're thinking he's walking a tightrope with their wide players, bombing forward, and really he's now got in his mind, I'm a tackle or so away from getting sent off. He made another tackle shortly afterwards, and then he got subbed off on the 24th minute. So less than ideal that one of your, what we see as a real key attacking threat is taken off after 25 minutes to avoid getting sent off.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying there in terms of the formation, and we'll come on to it in a bit more detail later on in this podcast. But with the players we currently have available, and the likes of Naismith, who can play as a left back and a back four, and Longvik, who can quite clearly play right back in a back four, um, the back four seems to be the formation that's screaming out with what we've got available. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do see Bloomfield change at some point soon, but I'm hoping we don't get stuck in the sort of the same situation we had with Edwards in charge, where they get so fixated on this back three or back five that it ends up costing us sort of our better players within the side. Because Millie Ali, if he's put into a left wing position or a left mid position in a more comfortable formation for the players we have in defence, I think we'll get so much more out of him, as we saw at times last season.
I completely agree. I mean, as I say, like I've mentioned there what I see his strength as, and I think Bloomfield said something in the post match around, we've got the players to play the system. I don't think we do right now with the injuries, and I don't really see the challenge or the difficulty in changing it if we need to change it for the odd game. Like, we have the personnel across the back four to play a four at the back. Um, I mean, what does it do beyond that? You go from a 3-4 sort of 2-1, four across the back. You put another body in central midfield. We have enough centre midfielders. You could put Liam Walsh in there as a starting player, and we have wide forwards as well. So I, I don't see that we're missing personnel to be able to go to that back four if and when we need to. And I'm not gonna start saying we're completely playing the wrong formation, blah blah blah. But it's just having that flexibility at the right times when you are clearly missing the key areas, in that formation of a five. Just I guess understanding and realizing that we do actually have the flexibility and the personnel to change it.
And let's talk a bit more about those personnel and how the goal came about, because obviously we mentioned that Ali went off in the 24th minute and we brought on Kadua. Not long after that, we conceded after an attack went down our right hand side, their left hand side, and they managed to get into the box pretty untouched, quite close to the byline, play it across, and then McGuinness. And if you haven't seen the footage, McGuinness he just seems to fall asleep. He does not know that there's a player on his back, and they quite easily get the ball across to Humphreys, who's in front of an open goal. And they take the lead pretty easily.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating when you think that the first two games, yes, we haven't played particularly well, um, and our issues have been more on the attacking side of things, and we have looked solid and structured at the back. So to concede a goal that's such kind of naive and poor defending, really kind of brings back too many memories from last season, that we were hoping we'd forgotten. The goal itself. I mean, if McGuinness isn't physically ready, then he shouldn't be in the 11. Um, and you find a solution to that. I mean, even if it's playing Tom Holmes, who we know obviously is not like right up there in our list of centre halves, but if we know he's in a better condition than McGuinness physically, then that's something to look at. Again, or you go ahead and change formation. But on that goal, I mean, how McGuinness can kind of let that ball bounce, kind of almost go under it himself. When you think that you turn around and the goal's there, um, and then obviously from there it's just a simple touch across the goal line, and Humphreys taps it in. So yeah, I mean, such poor defending, and I hoped we'd eradicated that level of naivety and shoddy defending. Um, and if we haven't, we're going to need to do it quite quickly.
And obviously, after that goal, it was what 10, 15 minutes of us getting the ball and doing very little with it for the remainder of the first half. We had more of the ball throughout the game. In that first half, we had 58% possession, but Bradford weren't really tested at any point. We were getting the ball and trying to look wide to options that weren't there, or we were getting the ball and trying to pass it to a player, and we just seemed to be giving it away at every opportunity. The one player who did look like they were stringing a few passes together and sort of trying to create something for me was Baptiste again. And I was quite surprised when he was subbed off on 52nd minute just after we conceded the second.
Yeah, I mean, we have this tendency to just pass the ball to the opposition. And, we've done it a fair few times in the first two games before the weekend as well. So we need to look at that, because I'm not saying that we should be passing teams off the pitch. We're 3 games in. We're a squad that's been in transition over the summer, and those patterns and kind of the things that we want to do will take time to build up. But the basics of finding your own teammates with passes is something we really need to sharpen up on. I mean, I'm looking at a couple of the stats from the game. Like, it says we had 477 passes in total and 376 accurate. So over 100 misplaced passes where we've given the ball straight back. And by my quick maths, that's less than 1 in 5. And it's really not good enough to be gifting the ball away so easily and just seeing your momentum and your attacks break down. So that's definitely an area that we need to liven up on, because if we can't keep the ball, then we're going to be you know running back to our own goal, defending as well.
Yeah, it was. It seemed more prevalent than the first two league games as well, and it was against a side who looked better than any of the other sides we faced. So when we were giving the ball away, they were securing it and settling into possession, and we weren't really putting any pressure on them. We seemed very, very passive out of possession, so sort of letting them pass it around, letting them get it wide to Neufville and Torre, who I was impressed by both of them. They were both causing problems out wide. Um, and obviously Humphreys is a physical presence in the penalty area, and he was sort of making our defence have to think at times as they were getting the ball wide, and we were having to deal with it on a number of occasions, and we were actually lucky not to concede more than two.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had a couple of decent chances in the first half before they scored. They had a very good chance in the second half to go 3-0 up, and all bar Josh Keeley. No, that's more of a humiliating scoreline, if we're being honest. But they were fantastic. I mean, their game was around those bombing wing backs who are clearly fit, are clearly you know number one in their positions, and we struggled to cope with it. And yeah, I mean they were just better than us. So we can you can look at it and go, well, we can go back a couple of years and go, well, they were League Two, we were Prem, like, but it's all irrelevant. I've seen messages like that on social media, and it doesn't add to the humiliation. You just have to accept that they were the better team on the day, and they deserve to win the game. So it's really as simple as that, and we have to forget about it to a certain extent because we've got another game in 48 hours, um, and they keep coming thick and fast at this time of the season. So yes, we can be disappointed, we can be frustrated, but we need to get over it because there's another game very soon as well.
And let's just talk a bit more about those wing backs because they obviously both came into to Bradford over the summer. Torre had been at Stockport for a couple of seasons where if you look at sort of the numbers he was putting up and the performances he was putting in, he was actually one of their standout players. He got 9 assists in the 2023-24 season as they came up from League Two. And then last season he made 45 League One appearances as well, getting 3 assists as well. Then you look at Nuffel on the other side, and everyone obviously we know him a bit better, being a former Luton academy player, and he got what in 56 appearances last season, obviously in League Two, and then the the obviously the cup competitions as well. 5 goals, 4 assists, and they both slotted straight into their Bradford side, and they're clearly very very good at what they do. And as you mentioned, their fitness is seemed like the real standout because they were really bombing up and down those wings, which is something I don't think we've seen from our wing backs. If you could say that the players we've had there so far have been wing backs.
And that's precisely the difference. We have played players at wing back that are not wing backs. That despite the fact that I thought Lomvik was really good second half against Peterborough, he's not a right wing back. He's not a left wing back. We saw that in the first game of the season. Like he's a centre back. He's built like a centre back. He can play anywhere across the back three or back two, but he's a centre back. Um, Millie Ali is a forward, whether it's a wide forward or a striker. You know, whereas those guys for Bradford, I know Nerfville wasn't a right wing back when we had him at Luton, but he's clearly developed into that role, knows it, and has the attributes to do well there. So we're talking about players that they're two wing backs that are fundamentally that is their position, and at the moment for us, we're talking about square pegs in round holes.
And another area of the pitch that I thought Bradford outdid us as well, which is obviously not saying that much because we were outdone on most areas of the pitch, was the midfield. And I thought Sarkovic and Power really controlled the game. They're two very, very experienced players at this level and also the level below, and in Power's case, in the Championship as well. And you could see they were using their experience to break up play and slow it down and play things how they wanted it to be and give it to players like Bobby Poynton, who was really, really impressive and is an academy graduate at Bradford, and they were knowing when to speed the game up and when to slow it down, and we just seem to be slowing it down constantly.
Yeah, I mean, just on Poynton, just I call it out before I forget. I thought he was brilliant. Um, if carries on playing like that, that'll be a player that they struggle to keep hold of. In January or next summer, unless they grow at the same rate as him. But he looks a real good player for them. So fair play to them for that. I think what you mentioned centre midfield there. The biggest thing that surprised me was our lack of control, and I know we haven't had it at all times, but we certainly had it in the second 45 against Peterborough through Baptiste and Saville, and you started to really see that relationship. And we came away buzzing by Baptiste and his performance, particularly in that second half. So to not really have that foothold in the game through two senior players like that really surprised me. And I think then goes to put the pressure on those players that are out of position, that are up against their name, their mirror positions that we've spoken about already. So that was the biggest disappointment for me. I think I can cope with players playing out of position because I think if you have that control in midfield and that foothold, you're the ones going forward and really being able to dictate the play. But we just didn't have that at all. And yeah, I wouldn't say it worries me because players have off days and sometimes things don't work. but I would have liked to have seen something to back up the Peterborough second half with those two, for them to say like we're taking control of this game, and it never really came at any point, did it?
No, not at all. And we did obviously get a goal back late on, probably too late to think we could get anything else back from the game. But that came through our two wide players who, at this stage in the game, were wide players. In Bramall on the left, who I think it's clear isn't fully fit yet. He's not quite ready for a 90, but I would probably start him in the game against Wigan just because he is an out and out left wing back or left back. And he seems to be absolutely rapid, by the way. I know I mentioned it before that he is a very, very quick player, but when you see how quickly he tracks back, it doesn't matter as much when he's out of position because you know he'll get back and get goal side of his man or obviously get in front of his player out wide. And then Kadua as well, who actually came on when he came on in the 24th minute, was probably our best player in the whole game at that stage. He was the one player that looked to be trying to beat men.
Yeah, I mean Bramall, he's the only left footer we've got, isn't it? Really, bar obviously Naismith playing centre half, but as a left wing back, he's a natural left footer, and I think for fluidity and when you get into the opposition's half and you're looking for those kind of those overlaps or those movements, you have to have a left-footed left back or left wing back. And when you've got Lomvik playing there, it's so easy to see for the opposition to see what he's going to do. Is he's going to get the ball 9 times out of 10, he's going to cut back onto his right, and we're going to go either backwards or sideways. Whereas having that left-footed player that can really take it to the byline and get crosses in and show intent is just such a big difference. And I think that's pretty much hopefully clear for everybody to see that. So that's something we need to sort out. And if we're not going to address left wing back anymore with any more incomings, we have to get Bramwell to the point where he's fit enough to play and start, because it is so different having that left footer. And then on Kadua, I thought he was decent, to be fair. I mean, he's a young lad getting chucked into a game that's we're in a bit of a desperate scenario, but I thought what he did was reasonably good. And yeah, I mean he leapt very high for his header, so I didn't quite expect him to jump that high for the header. So a positive sign from one of the younger guys there. And yeah, we'll see what he can do and what he can offer. I feel like he's one of those players where we don't really quite know what his best position is yet. Is it a right wing back? Is it a right forward? Is it a central forward? Um, I'm not too sure. So I think we probably need to kind of work that out as well at some point in the near future.
Yeah, and he is a player that you think, based on what he put into that game, if we were to move to sort of a back four with more attacking wingers or wide forwards, he's someone you'd expect to go into one of those roles on the right hand side.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why I'm saying that how much of a disruption would it be if we did go to a back four occasionally? Because you've got central strikers in Yates and Wells, you've got wide players in Kadua and Miliali. You've got Izzy Jones to come back as well, who can play on the right. Well, at some point, where potentially looks like we're going to see Chong, and he's definitely not a wing back. He's going to be or should be, a wide forward. So you've got the basis to play a three up front that's wide and not narrow, and for that reason, you can go to four at the back. So that, again, there's that flexibility that I think is there already. That maybe the manager and the staff don't necessarily agree.
It is frustrating because we spoke about it so many times under Edwards, how he seems stuck in the back three, and it seems to be something we're talking about again.
Yeah, and also, you're in the middle of the transfer window as well. I mean, you need to recruit. You need to, if you want to change it, then recruit for that system. I mean, I have no issue with Bloomfield, right now. Um, but some of the comments I've seen around, oh, but this is the formation that suits our players. Like, we've been in an active transfer window for a good while. So if you want to change it to a four at the back and play that 4-2-3-1 that he's played before coming to Luton, then go and sign the personnel in the window and make it happen. Go and sign a natural right back or a natural left back, and make it work to that formation. So I'm a little bit. I don't really buy the comments of, oh, but it's best suited to the squad, because there's still opportunity to make sure your squad is more stocked. Even though I think it is, but more stocked to a four at the back formation anyway.
And we're going to talk a bit more about the transfer windows and the signings we've made and the signings we haven't made after the break, along with a Wigan preview. Just before we go on to that and go to a break quickly, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what needs to change in terms of, from the team we saw against Bradford, who are the players that you think will be starting week in, week out, and should be starting as we go forward, and anyone you think might come out the side?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I'm not. I don't think we need to overreact. We've played poorly. We've lost the game, but there's a lot of games to go, and it's been a summer of transition, and things will take time to bed down. So for people panicking out there, don't just give it a bit of time, because we're going to get nowhere if we keep panicking after a defeat. Um, on the players themselves, I mean, Keeley's an absolute shoe-in, isn't he? Like, if he's fit, he plays 46 league games. Um, right now, number one centre half for me would be Anderson. I don't think I know Naismith gives us the left-footed centre half, so probably him as well. But no one else is particularly a shoe-in. I think Anderson and Naismith definitely on the team sheet for me. Again, I still like that midfield too, or two of the midfield being Baptiste and Saville, because of that experience and control that we should be seeing. And I think, again, that partnership will form, and we will start to see the best out of that as well. So those two stay there for me, regardless of whether you bring in Walsh to play with them. That's kind of irrelevant at this stage. Um, and then other than that, I think Jordan Clark's probably the one as well. So there's room for players to lose their place. I mean, we've already addressed the wing back positions enough. I think McGuinness, not a shoe in right now, and especially until that fitness shows. And then really, I mean, Lamine Fane started at the weekend. He's not an attacking midfielder. I I, I, I can't quite understand what we're trying to do with him. We signed him as a holding midfielder, and all the YouTube clips and everything you see when he was at AIK, a proper combative holding midfielder. And how many times have we played him there? I think this is whatever the experiment we're trying to do with him, and this stretches back to Edwards as well, is absolutely balmy, because he's clearly not an attacking midfielder. Um, so yeah, I mean, he's like, yeah, again, his position is not by any means a shoe in at all. So yeah, there's a few there, but there's certainly positions on the pitch where there needs to be competition, and players watching themselves as well.
And you mentioned Anderson's obviously a shoe-in at the moment. Baptiste, you also said, is, in your opinion, among that best two midfield options we have. And for me, I'm actually going to go back on a few things I said last season on him, because I was probably one of the most critical people on this podcast about Baptiste last season. And a lot of that was obviously to do with his fitness. But I think in the first couple of games this season, we've really started to see what he can do and what he can offer. And if he stays fit, and it's very much an if because of his injury problems in the past, but he looks to be fit. He's at a proper pre-season where he seems to have flourished, actually.
Yeah,
You can really see his ability on the pitch, because he looks so confident when he gets the ball. And even against Bradford, where we didn't look great with the ball, he was the one player you looked at when he picked the ball up, was actually looking for players, was drifting past a couple of players. And when he's confident and he's got the players around him that give him that space to sort of bomb forward a bit, I think he could really prove to be one of the best players in the division this season, which almost brings in the argument maybe we do need another player in that midfield to give him the space to roam a bit.
yeah, potentially, and it depends what we're going to do, doesn't it? Because if we're going to stick to this, then you have got that midfield too. But equally, you could have Fane dropped back to holding with Saville and let Baptiste push on a bit as well. So there's loads of potential and options there. The only thing I would say about Baptiste and Saville, as much as I think they're shoe-ins, and I do think they're shoe-ins, they have to be, their mindset has to be, we're going to control this game. We're going to take it by the scruff of the neck. Not a mindset of, well, we're experienced players and we're clearly superior, so the game will come to us. Because we saw on Saturday, the game won't come to you. You've got to take control of it and and dictate it. And I do feel like on Saturday that there was an element of, again, like an element of no tempo and a bit of laziness in that particular area of the pitch as well. So yeah, still things to improve on across that position as well.
We'd love to know your thoughts on what we've just discussed. So let us know in the comments on YouTube or on Spotify or on social media. That's at Oak Road Hatter on all your social media platforms. But we're going to go to a quick break now. When we get back, we'll be looking ahead to the visit of Wigan Athletic on Tuesday night. Welcome back to the Oak Road Hatter podcast, where I'm still joined by Adam Driscoll. And now we're looking ahead to Tuesday night's visit of Wigan Athletic. But before that, we just wanted to make sure all Hatters are aware of a minute's applause that's going to be taking place on the 7th minute of the game in memory of lifelong Hatter Adam Dilly, who sadly passed away recently. And obviously, it will be a very emotional moment for a lot of Luton fans, and we just want to make sure everyone is aware and gets involved. But yeah, let's go onto the game, Adam, because we're playing against a Wigan Athletic side who have started in the same form as us. They've got 2 wins and a defeat from their opening 3 league games. And it's a Wigan side that in the last few seasons has probably underwhelmed in a lot of cases, and they're not on a bit of a rebuild over the last few seasons. And it seems to be that they started this season much more positively with a few new signings, a manager in Ryan Lowe who's very experienced in the EFL and knows what he's doing, and a pretty solid side. So when you look at their recent results, their opening league game was a 3-1 win at home to Northampton. They obviously lost 2-0 away at Leyton Orient, where it was a bit of a disaster day for Steven Sessegnon. He obviously scored an own goal and got a red card in that game, and they went on to lose 2-0. And then they got like us, a 2-0 win over Peterborough United in their most recent game. And they've got some very, very experienced players at this level and some exciting young players as well. But I just wanted to talk to you about a couple of those individuals, and also obviously Ryan Lowe being in charge. So obviously in goal, they've got Sam Tickle, who's one of the most highly rated goalkeepers in League One, probably one of the highest rated young goalkeepers in the whole EFL.
Yeah, and he's someone that I had kind of flagged around us replacing Kaminsky or adding to the goalkeeping department. I think a few others had on socials as well, but yeah, he's clearly a really good keeper already. 23, so he's got same age as Josh Keeley, I think, as well. So he's got a lot of potential. And they've got a really good keeper in him. So someone that will probably end up moving on at some point for a decent amount of money, because he's not far away from being a kind of a top championship goalkeeper as well. So yeah, going to need to hopefully try and test him a little bit on Tuesday night.
And then obviously they've got quite an experienced back three in Will Aimson, Jason Kerr, and Morgan Fox is now playing. They did have James Carragher, obviously, Jamie Carragher's son, but he's out with an injury at the moment. But it's in the forward department I wanted to look at more, because they've got some exciting young forwards, and also on the bench, surprisingly on the bench actually in their league games, a very experienced Paul Mullin, who obviously thanks to his Wrexham fame, he's a bit of a celebrity in America, weirdly for a sort of a 30-year-old EFL striker, but also he's a very, very good striker at this level. Then they've got Christian Sadie and Dara Costello as well.
Yeah, they've got some decent young players there. I mean, I can't say I know a lot about all of them or many of them, but I know Sadie was at Portsmouth and is a bit of a handful up front. So it could be one that tries to unsettle our big tall centre halves, and it wouldn't surprise me if perhaps Wigan's approach on Tuesday was more of a longer ball into someone like him, and then you've got the wide men, kind of playing off of that as well. And then just looking at who they played, yeah. So Costello seemed to have played up front with Sadie the other day, but you'd imagine he could be a bit wider. Obviously, Hungbo as well was a previous Watford youngster, and then I've just seen on the list they've got the very experienced Callum McManaman as well, who we know a fair amount about. So yeah, I'm not sure he's been involved too much, but they've clearly got some talent in attacking areas, and again, like we need to make sure that it's a game that we're fully up for and ready to take control of, because it will be another test.
Yeah, you'd expect it to be a bit of a physical battle if you've got Sadie playing. The same also, I think, can be said if Mullen's playing. He seems like a striker who knows how to wind up defenders as well, and almost a relief that Makoto isn't playing in that case, because you could see him being someone that gets targeted a bit more in Mullen. But he's a very good goal scorer, obviously, at this level. He has done, obviously, when he was at Cambridge initially, before he went to Wrexham, he was really, really good in sort of League Two, and then moving up to League One when he decided to leave and drop down to Wrexham. So if he does play, he's someone that we know can find the back of the net. And then in Sadie and Costello, two youngsters who they clearly have big expectations for. You mentioned Callum McManaman there. I thought that was quite interesting that he's gone back there, because wasn't he part of the Wigan side that won the FA Cup all those years ago?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I think he didn't he. But did he score, or did he put in the corner or something that won them the FA Cup or something like that? I'm sure he was involved in the goal somehow.
I think he put the corner in for Ben Watson.
Yes, that was it. Yeah, I was trying to visualize it in my head. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was older than 34, to be fair, but he's not. So he's yeah.
He
I don't
actually
know if he's
seemed quite old when we had him.
yeah, exactly. I thought he was probably about that when we had him, which was a good few years ago now. So yeah, I don't. As I say, I don't know how much he'll feature, but again, like a decent, experienced winger at this level.
They're clearly a defensively solid side. They've only conceded one goal in their, well, one goal in the cup, in their one cup game and two of their league games, but then conceded two in that game that they got a red card in. So I guess that's an anomaly in their form because of that card. But at home they're very good. Away from home they seem, from that initial game, maybe they're slightly more restricted, and it'll be interesting to see sort of how they approach what we're going to do based on what they've offered. If you look at sort of the stats from their recent game, I'm was very surprised to see they only had 30% possession at home to Peterborough. So Ryan Lowe clearly isn't going to be looking for a lot of the ball, and I guess that playing against us will suit them to that, for the sort of that extent, because Bloomfield does want us to take the ball and sort of work our way up the pitch with it. And I'd be interested to see how we actually line up in midfield against a side that aren't looking to keep the ball.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the vast majority of teams this season will come to Luton and probably do the same thing. They'll make sure they're defensively structured and solid. They won't be fussed about having loads of the ball, because they will know that if we've had 70% possession and after 15 or 20 minutes we're not winning, the hostility in the atmosphere can turn negative. And this is kind of really my point the last day or so on socials, that like we're going to have setbacks this season, but it's pointless referencing last season's setbacks and even the previous year, because they've been and gone. We are in a period of transition, and if we start jumping on the players' backs after a defeat or after 20 minutes where we're not winning, like it, it doesn't. It's not going to do anybody any good, like Bloomfield or the players. The last time we were in a position where we'd had a good few seasons of, let's say, mediocrity, to be nice, was was when John still took over. We'd been stuck in the conference. We'd had a dodgy start to that season. I think we'd played 7 games and won maybe one or two, and we know what the sentiment was from him, and what he tried to install in the fans and the club. And I don't think we're not in that deep dark place by any means, but I do feel like we need the same level of trust and belief. And you know, I don't want to go off on too much of a rant here, but leave the past in the past. Focus on this season and what we want to do. If we have a setback, yes, be frustrated, disappointed, share your views, your opinions, whatever, but then get over it, because your support is then needed in the next game, which will be 2 or 3 days later. So, yeah, I'm trying to adopt that approach. I'm going to see how long that will take me into the season, hopefully with the same approach. But I do think it's really important that we all kind of stick with it and see where we can go.
And we're going to get some opinions from some of the fans from our as hot takes from after the Bradford game. But before that, we're going to do some score predictions for the Wigan game. So I guess I'm going to start this time because I got you to start last time. Um, I do think it'll be a much better performance. I think it'll be difficult not to be a better performance. And with us being at home, I think Bloomfield will want us to pick up sort of where we left off, but with a better performance than we put in against Wimbledon. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Luton win, and I'm expecting that there'll be a few changes to that Luton side as well.
I'm laughing because I was thinking in my head the same scoreline. Um, I'll think about my scoreline while I explain, but I think we'll see a reaction. I think we may see a couple of changes to structure or personnel as a result of the weekend, um, as almost a little bit of a wake up call. So I do think we'll be better, we'll be more aggressive, uh, more intensity about us. Um, do you know what? I'm gonna stick with my theme of scoreline for predictions so far this season, and I'm going to go 2-0 again, and get back on that clean sheet, and a couple of goals to get us going again.
And we'd love to know your score predictions as well if you're listening to this. So let us know in the usual ways. We're going to move on to some Hatters hot takes now, and we've got a couple here from Twitter. The first one is from Shazy1 LTFC. So I think we know, or Shazy1 LTFC. So I think we know where his loyalties lie in the goalkeeping department. And he says Yates might not be the one. Not saying for sure. Have to wait and see. Which I guess is interesting from what two and a half games so far. Sort of jump to that. He is a player that we've discussed in quite a lot of detail on this podcast, and he's a player that's been at this level before and sort of done it at this level. So he does say have to wait and see, but I don't think he's had the service first and foremost. So he's not really been able to show what he can do in front of goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think Yates is the one, but not on his own when you've got nobody anywhere near him from an attacking perspective. If if you've got Yates up front in a two with Wells or with somebody else, then fine. If you've got Yates on his own, but you've got or sorry, on his own centrally, but you've got two wide forwards next to him in a three, again he's fine. Like, we've already spoken about the fact that he scored all of his goals in the last 3 seasons inside the box. So that really says it all. You've got to give him the supply, and if you don't do that, then he's not the one, but it's not his fault. So I don't agree with the kind of set the onus being on him. You've got to work around his strengths, and we didn't do that at all on Saturday, and we need to make sure we do that, because you've got a guy that will put the ball in the net, but play to his strengths.
And in that sense, I think Clark is probably the player that we need to see playing a more central role behind the striker, because he is the one that you think would probably find Yates with those passes and work him into the box. Because in that wider position, I think he is actually a bit wasted, and we have mentioned it before.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Clark's not a wide forward. He can play the AM role, which is fine. But if he's playing the AM role and you've just got Yates up front, like Saturday, I don't think it works. So Clark's a funny one, isn't he? What do you do with him? Do you drop him back a bit deeper into a three in midfield, like a proper three in midfield, and go three up front? Like I don't know, but um, for me, Clark has to play, but we just still need to find that system and the right personnel to make it work for everybody.
And we're going to take our second hot take here, and it's from T Western 1953, and it's a bit more sort of harsh than the Yates one, I would say. So it's, I don't think Matt Bloomfield is any better than Rob Edwards. Well done, Gary Sweet. Cheap options, loans, free transfers, journeymen, basically bringing in players no other clubs want. It's a bit harsher and it's quite an extreme perspective, but I can see where he's coming from, particularly in that transfer front, as we mentioned. Only two of the players we've brought in this window have been for a fee. And when you look at, we are probably the richest club in League One by quite a distance. It's a bit disappointing that we're not looking to spend some of that money. And we're not asking for tens of millions to be spent in League One in the way that Birmingham did, but maybe a couple of million being splashed out on a player, particularly in those areas we discussed earlier in the podcast, in those wide sort of wing back or full back areas, I think is something that we really need to be doing. And I can kind of see where he's coming from in that free transfers, cheap options, loans sense. But I think the Matt Bloomfield comment is difficult to judge. And I don't think you can say that Edwards was a bad manager. I just think his time ran out and we didn't get rid of him soon enough.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely the case for Edwards. He did well for us for a certain period. He did well for us to really in the Premier League as well. But clearly that all of last season was pretty poor, and we should have got rid. And we've spoken about it before. We should have got rid earlier. I don't want to compare him and Bloomfield. Like Bloomfield came into a really poor situation, and he needs time. Like there's no point in reacting and questioning him right now. Like there's a time potentially to question what we're getting from Bloomfield, but it's way down the line for now. So I don't want to get into that kind of cross comparison. There's a few things to pick out, isn't there, really, from what he said? But yeah, free transfers we've made. I don't have a problem with the majority of them. There's a couple that I sort of thought, okay, are they going to impact here and now in Kadua and Bramall? I would have liked to seen a more established left wing back for the level, and maybe for someone you go out and spend money on. And I still sit here now and say we need another one, so go and spend money on another one. But I don't have a problem with the window so far. The big judgment will be in 15 days or whatever it is. What have we done overall in the window? And if Saturday taught us anything, it taught us that we're probably still two or three players light. And I think we're not two or three squad fillers light. We're two or three bits of quality light. And I'm talking like an Asgard replacement, probably again another left wing back, probably a proper right winger as well, so that we can look at that front three with Ali, one of the forwards, and a right winger, or potentially you don't get the right winger and you go and get another striker if you want to play more narrow. So we need to bring in a little bit more quality. There's no doubt about that, and I think to do that you've got to spend a bit of money. Will we do it? I don't know. I have my doubts, but we need to. But I'm going to hold judgment until the end of the window, and then we'll do a window special like we did same time last year.
And that's everything from us for today's podcast. And before we go, I just want to do another reminder that on the 7th minute of the Wigan game on Tuesday night, there will be a minute's applause in memory of Adam Dilly. But from myself and from Adam, that's everything. And we hopefully our predictions will bring more positive results come Tuesday night. So thank you very much for listening.